All right. Callum, welcome to the Founders Lounge.
Thank you, please.
So Callum, you are the CEO of reviews.io, fullpicture.io, and Poet.so. And I remember the first time when I came across your Twitter profile, and I just, clicking around, and I checked your profile, and I saw what you were doing, and I clicked on all the three products that you're running, and I thought that all of them were really, really cool products, really nice landing pages, things that are, well, at least two of them, I would say that they're actually not necessarily easy businesses. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about, how it's going and what you think about it. So really excited to dive a little bit deeper into everything that you do.
Yeah, so our main business is reviews.io.
Yes. Let's just start with that. Can you tell a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so reviews.io is a review collection and publishing platform. We specialize in working with e-commerce brands, and we help companies collect reviews from their happy customers. There's a lot more than goes into it than this, but we help brands collect reviews from their happy customers, and then we publish them on their site, on reviews.io profile pages, and we also send them to Google. So the brands get these little gold stars next to their ads, which help improve click-through rate and lower the PPC costs.
Okay. And so can you talk a little bit more about the history, how that whole thing started? I think you've been running this business for around 10 years, is it?
Yeah, so I've been in tech for a long time, all my working career. I've been through multiple downturns, multiple upturns. And we started reviews.io, myself and my wife, from literally our kitchen table back in 2010, 2011. And then we went to market 2013. And we're now at 67 people in UK, Germany, Australia, and America.
Uh-huh. Oh, in Australia as well. I'm in Australia right now.
Yeah, Australia's a great market. We have some senior directors now based in Australia. Our COO is over there, and I'm one of our big sales directors in Australia.
Uh-huh. Do you ever come to visit? I'm really positively surprised about Sydney. It looks like an incredible city.
Yeah, Sydney's amazing. We've done really well in Australia. We had like a format. The first country we went to was the UK. That was where we started. That was where we founded the business. And then we went over to America. We failed the first time we went there. And then we went back a second time and we made it work. And we then took that formula over to Australia. And then we've taken that formula again into Germany. Germany's been a difficult transition, but we've got really good traction there now, and it's our fastest growing market.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit more about in the very beginning? So you said you started in about 2010, 2011. And how was the reviews market back then? Because right now, we've got some big players that many people know about. How was it, 12 years ago?
Yeah, it was very immature. It was like green space, really, I suppose. The big review providers at the time were probably Yelp and TripAdvisor. They were the probably biggest review companies out there at the time. Trustpilot had just started and was still, they literally only just started, and they were still in Denmark. And then they moved into the UK as their second market. And it was interesting. I was very, very lucky. I had Trustpilot as a massive competitor. They had huge funding, and they went out and they kind of educated the market. And I always thank them for that. They educated the e-commerce tech space about the need for reviews. So I sort of tucked in behind them, and it really worked. We didn't do the same things when they zigged, we zagged, but they did help me in educating that market, probably that I couldn't afford to do. We're still bootstrapped now. So we took a different path to probably all of the other review providers out there. Most of them went off and raised huge amounts of venture capital, and we stayed bootstrapped throughout the whole journey.
Amazing. That's actually really interesting what you said, because there's a concept of the first mover advantage, right? That if you're the first in the market, that then you have that advantage of time, I suppose, to capture the market. But I really think very often, especially when you're doing something innovative, it's more of a first mover disadvantage, because just as you said, it just costs so much to just educate the market. What's the benefit?
Yeah.
What's your product? Why do they need that? It can be incredibly costly. And okay, so you said it took.
Yeah, it's been proven time after time that you don't need first advantage.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been proven time after time that you don't need first mover advantage. You don't. As long as you've got a better product, you will win eventually. Tech always wins. That's the motto that we live by. And so we just really concentrated on the technology behind the service.
And was it hard competing? Well, you said it was. Yeah, you said it was competitive, but also there was also an advantage because at least people knew that. So what was your strategy then? How did you manage to compete against somebody because it is scary sometimes, right? I hear that very often. Somebody who's bootstrapped and they need to compete against startups that raise £100 million, and they're like, well, how am I supposed to do this?
So I'm a firm believer in the more conversations you have, the luckier you'll get. So we went out to every expo, we went to every event for such a long time, and we just had lots and lots of conversations. And some of those conversations turned into our first clients, and then we really delivered on the service to those first clients, and we really built the business based off word of mouth as well as off our own marketing. So that was kind of our strategy. We didn't have, tons of salespeople, and we still don't. We do build off like a lot of referrals. It was kind of delight that one customer and then bounce into the next customer. And that was our strategy, and it's really worked. And if you're that smaller player in the market up against someone big, you've got to just get out there and talk about your product. That's all you've got to do.
And so can you talk a little bit more about, you said it took, you started in 2011, let's say, and then you went to the market in 2012, 13. So it took a little bit of time to build the product, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? How are you technical enough? Did you actually build it, you and your wife, or how did you approach building the first MVP?
Yeah, so we built a really simple MVP to start with, just to see whether it'd work. And actually, it wasn't too difficult. We went out there with I was involved in tech before, so I built several companies up and sold those. And we really got started with this one really slowly. We built a really good MVP. We went out to the market. We got one or two clients interested, and then we doubled down and we started bringing in developers to make the product stronger and better than our competitors at that time. And we still use some of that tech that we created, 10 years ago, because we spent a lot of time working on the security element and verifying the reviews that are coming in.
And so one thing that maybe we didn't touch on so much is like, why actually reviews? Like, what made you do this business? So you said you had a few other businesses before, right? And then, I guess you were looking for something new. What was going to be the next thing? Yeah. And was it just, what triggered you? What made you think that that's going to be a good business?
So kind of, it was a long time coming. I very, very early on, I was, back in early 2000s, I was involved in e-commerce as a merchant, and we was an online appliances retailer called appliances.co.uk. And I kind of saw the value of reviews with that. We sold that business, we exited, we sold. And then we went off and created a price comparison platform. And reviews was a big element of the price comparison platform. So in May I think about 2007. No, May 2010. Google did an update which, affected every single price comparison platform in the market, and they all basically got killed to make room for Google Shopping. And I literally went back to the drawing board. I spent a lot of time looking at the drawing board. The price comparison platform we had was a big business, and it got killed overnight. And I really had to go back to the drawing board, look at what was working in that business again with a different set of eyes. And reviews is what we came out with.
So it's interesting because it's really hard when you're reliant on one channel so much, right? Whether that's Google or Facebook or Amazon. I just read on Twitter the other day, there was one thread that maybe you've seen it. It went kind of viral. There was somebody who had, 10,000 reviews or something on Amazon that just disappeared overnight. And he's claiming that there were real reviews, it's a real product, it's a high quality product, but Amazon for whatever reason removed the reviews, and it's like, your business just disappears overnight basically, right? And it's very often the same, with Google, either due to SEO, usually due to SEO, or with Facebook, right? It can be pretty difficult, which
I think you've got to be really careful and spread your business, and you've got to. When we came back after the price comparison platform, we understood that we needed to create more technology, not consumer technology, but actually create the base, which worked with multiple platforms. And we were one of those people who got killed by that update, as well as many other people. And Google actually got sued. They all joined together and Google sued, and it turned out to be a £2.3 billion claim.
Yeah, it's, right now, if you Google almost any service or especially anything local, not just the first screen, it's like the second screen as well. It's just Google, right? It's first the ads, then you got their Google Maps widget, and then like a few more of their own widgets, and they're really moving more and more towards just owning the whole real estate rather than actually driving clicks to the website. So I guess it's just something to be aware of and to be careful about when you're planning the strategy.
If you rely on any one source of traffic to drive your business, you're going to eventually hit some serious bumps in the road, and that's a big thing. We're seeing that with SEO. We've seen this with Facebook, the iOS update. Facebook got killed by that update, and as well as Facebook hurting, a lot of the retailers that worked on the retargeting of Facebook have been hurt. So if you rely on Facebook for your ads or your traffic at the minute, you're in trouble. You
need to diversify. Is that so? I'm curious because now you got two other products that are smaller from reviews.io. Is that just because you're an entrepreneur by heart and you want to create more things, or is that also partially just to diversify, to have more, more products, more businesses, more different kind of a safety net, I suppose? Or what's the motivation there?
The motivation is that they're sort of assimilation businesses. The Poet is a kind of a lead gen for reviews.io. A lot of people like Poet, and we give it away for free, and it's really boosted. Can
you explain a bit just what Poet is?
And my own visibility. So Poet allows you can post a Twitter link into Poet, and it'll turn that link into a nice image of that tweet.
It looks amazing.
Automatically. And it's very, very clean. It's very cool looking. And honestly, the people who use Poet around the world, I can't believe it. I look at the Google Analytics and I'm like, how is this tiny little app getting so much traction? It truly has gone viral. It gets used in Africa, Middle East, in Japan, Australia, everywhere in the world, people are making little poets. So that was a great product. And Influence.io is a loyalty solution. Loyalty and reviews go hand in hand. And it was really an add-on solution for Reviews.io. We saw that our customers were using loyalty, but they were quite unhappy. So we had a lot of customers coming to us saying, why don't you do a loyalty solution? We'd love a loyalty solution that kind of offered the tech that Reviews.io does, that you guys, because the thing about Reviews.io, we're always pushing new updates. We're always investing heavily in the product. And we didn't see that in the loyalty industry, in the e-commerce loyalty solutions out there. They weren't evolving very fast. And we just saw a gap in the market. So that's why we launched loyalty. And we're discounting it. If you're a Reviews.io client, we're massively discounting it. And it's kind of working like, not a lead gen, but it's helping us retain clients and it's helping us grow our customer base. So they all go hand in hand. There's no separate company. That's nothing to do with what we're doing at Reviews.io. Reviews.io is our lead company, and it's the heart of the business.
Okay. Have you launched any other things over the years that maybe didn't work out? Because we all know that that's the reality of entrepreneurship, right? I mean, you launch things, they don't work.
We've launched several things. Probably one of the things that we launched that I thought was going to be huge, and probably would have been huge if we would have gone out and got backing for it, was an affiliate fraud detection software. And that was kind of when we was launching Reviews.io, we sort of ran two horses back in 2010. Was we built this affiliate fraud detection MVP and the review software, and the fraud detect. If someone would have asked me back then which one of these is going to be a massive business, I would have said the fraud detection solution, not the review solution. And I just couldn't explain it concisely enough to get people invested. It was a very technical solution, and the retailers weren't interested really in identifying that type of fraud. They didn't see it as fraud. It was affiliate fraud. So you're talking about when one affiliate drops a cookie to claim that sale. And we noticed that there was a huge group of affiliates actually who were dropping cookies when they shouldn't be. They weren't driving that sale. But the retailers didn't care. As long as they got the customer, they were like, is it a fraudulent customer? And I'm like, no, it's not a fraudulent customer. You're paying a fraudulent affiliate member. And they didn't care, really. They didn't care enough to pay for the software. So that business died, and we stopped it pretty quickly.
Okay, I see. Is it... One thing that I've noticed quite often is with people who have a running business and then they launch something else, kind of a recurring pattern that I've seen is if they say that they invest very, very little into a new product, that product tends to work much better than if they invest a lot into this big, MVP. That's actually, the scope of that MVP is way too big, and they maybe invest lots of time and lots of money into it. And then those attempts, I'm going to say anecdotal, I don't have any stats to back that up, but from my anecdotal evidence, they're less likely to succeed. So I'm curious, how do you approach it now whenever you launch something new? Is it very, like a small business, tiny budget, small percentage of time, or do you tend to go into more proper kind of building of the solution?
So I'm a big fan of launching fast. I do a lot of market research, a lot of testing. So we launch things that maybe too quickly sometimes, but I think you can't launch quickly enough. So we'll launch things that with just a page and a form to fill out, and we will throw some ads at it, and we will probably sometimes make it look like we've got the solution. We just want to market test to see whether people actually want that solution. So and that's the quickest MVP. You can throw an MVP together. You can do Webflow, do a form on Webflow, throw that page up, throw some ads at it, see if there's any traction, see if that is something that actually, you've got to validate your ideas quickly. If you're an entrepreneur, you get, I get way too many ideas. And you've got to validate those ideas very, very quickly. And that's what I do now. And I don't launch anything unless we've validated that idea. And probably we'll take that Webflow page down after an hour, maybe a day, maybe a week. And then we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll contact those people and we'll say, like, look, we're working on this solution. And we'll go, if we get enough traction very early on, we will then invest resources into that solution.
Yeah, that's a very, very good lesson. I can't overstate that enough. I think there are so many people who want to start something and then they spend so much time on the first version of the product. And we're talking months or years, right? Before they actually launch something. And you have no real market data. You have no idea if it's ever going to work. And then you learn after, I don't know, a year of building it, you launch it, nobody cares about it. And maybe through the process of launching it and through the process of then finally getting some insights and talking to some users, you realize, oh no, we actually, should have done something completely different. And then that's when you really start understanding the market and start understanding what the solution should be, right?
I think that there is a bit of scar tissue that you have to build up as an entrepreneur launching products. You have to build up that muscle memory that just goes, hold on, that didn't work that time. And how can I learn that faster? And first time founders, sometimes spend way too long, especially developer first time founders. Because developers love to build things. And developer first time founders build. I've been trying to mentor a first time founder who just won't stop building, and it's heartbreaking because he's investing years and years, and it might not work. It might not work, and he doesn't even know whether that's going to work. And I would have gone out, because I've got that muscle memory now. I would have gone out and tested the market first. Go and do an expo. If you want to go and talk to some clients, go and get $2,000 together, go and stand at an expo and go and talk to your clients. Or go and join a forum or go to an event, but go and talk to people. Communication is key, but what you've got is that, developer founders don't like, as a general group, they don't like getting out there and talking to people about their product, but they can learn so much more and they can pivot faster and they actually come out with a much, much better product. And reviews, that's why we moved so fast, because we had so many conversations and we got the product. I'd go home at night and I'd be writing notes and making sure the next day when we had our meetings, right, hold on, this guy said this yesterday about this. And those conversations really build your roadmap. I don't think you build the roadmap in your head. You build your roadmap by having conversations, listening really well, and then converting what you listened into a product. And that's a real skill.
And it's really hard to explain it. I remember when I first time heard that, we've all heard about lean startup and all the methodologies and how you're supposed, but it's so hard to actually understand it until you actually experience it for yourself. And when you see how when you actually go out there and talk to either the experts and the users, and when you actually dive into the real market, how you start getting all these insights and you start realizing like, oh, actually, I was completely wrong, or nobody needs this, or I completely misunderstood that, right? The other thing that I hear quite often is, the approach that you mentioned, just build a landing page and, drive some advertising traffic and see what happens. And I hear like, well, but I don't want to spend money on ads now if I don't have anything yet. But the problem is that the alternative is actually worse. You're going to spend a lot of time, and then in addition, you're going to spend advertising money, and it's still not going to be anything, right? You're still not going to convert those people, most likely. From my experience, the first version almost never works. Yeah. That's if the first version works, I'm almost concerned because something's probably wrong.
Yeah, I mean, everybody kind of pivots. Everybody. I mean, reviews.io, the first version of reviews.io before we started speaking to people was that we'd write the reviews. And that seems insane now. We've collected 28 million reviews. And I was thinking back then when we started that we as a company would write the reviews. We'd be professional reviewers. And on going out and speaking to everybody and learning, that's a ridiculous idea. We was trying to probably compete with probably CNET and those type of tech blogs at the time. And it only on talking to people did we learn that isn't the right path. So, my best advice is get out there and, talk. I know it's horrible and it's out of some people's comfort zones. The more conversations you have, the luckier you'll get.
The mindset shift that I had to do there. So I'm also a technical person. I'm introvert. I like to hang out with people, but I don't like to hang out with people too much. There's a good balance in that. And I think the mindset shift that I made there is like, if something makes me feel awkward, then I probably should do it. If it's something that feels a little bit awkward and uncomfortable, then that's the thing to do. That's not the thing to avoid. And I think that was a game changer for me.
Yeah, 100%. Run towards it. Don't run away from it.
When did you realize then? You've launched, you've pivoted a little bit. When was the moment when you said, okay, this is actually working? This is going to be a business.
It was quite early on. It was early on after we pivoted. We got one client who's still with us today. They're with us now. And when we won that client, I kind of thought, hold on. This client is a big multinational brand, $1 billion business. And I was like, this is a $1 billion business taking a chance on two people sitting around a kitchen table. And literally, I did that deal on the telephone in my garden. And it was probably when I put the phone down there, I thought, you know what? We need to get some team members. I need to build a team around me. What am I good at? What am I not good at? And that was really probably after that call when we won that first big client that we realized we had to. This was going to be a good business, and we had to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And then so now today you said you got 67 employees, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think 67, 70 today. We're growing all the time. I lose count. I just see people join the Slack channel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, another one. And yet they're all over the world. Uh-huh. So it kind of, when they're all over the world, it is hard to keep track. We do have a HR team now who do all of that. I generally manage the development team. And oversee the really most facets of the business. We're now at 67.
69. And did you say 28 million reviews collected, right?
Yeah.
And then approximately, what's your revenue right now?
It's about 10 million ARR.
Okay. And so what were some of the major growth? I remember you tweeted actually about that recently. You tweeted kind of what were some of your growth, drivers of your growth. What would you say, what were some of your major growth drivers or even growth triggers and moments, throughout the journey?
I mean, there's so many. That probably our biggest driver of growth at the minute is probably partnerships. That's the biggest right now. We were never big on outbound. We were all about inbound. Mm-hmm. So it was all word of mouth. It was all really getting out, talking to people, those people coming in via referrals. But the biggest growth driver at the moment is partnerships, definitely. Partnerships and our integration.
Of what kind?
They're the biggest at the moment. So we have a partnership team, partnerships with tech services. So like the likes of Klaviyo is our biggest one, and then Gorgeous and Omnisend and all of these different really good SaaS e-commerce solutions out there. And then we also have a partnerships team that works with agencies, and agencies is a really good driver of our business. We go out, we really keep in contact with those agencies a lot, and we talk to them about who their clients are, how we can help their clients, and then we handheld those clients through setting up their review collection and publishing solution. So partnerships is probably my biggest at the moment.
Okay. And so you mentioned you're mostly overseeing the tech team and I suppose the product development, right? Okay.
Yes. So
one thing that I think about quite often is when to copy and when to innovate. I think I used to be a hardcore, startup person, Silicon Valley, everything, we need to innovate, everything needs to be an innovative solution. I've actually changed quite a bit over the years. I think that very often you don't have to, or you shouldn't even innovate. I think innovation is really hard. And I think that I've seen companies that almost kill themselves by over innovating because they think that every single thing they need to have a completely innovative approach. And that's really hard. And very often it just doesn't work and it just uses a lot of resources and it kills you, or you just suffer through that. So I'm wondering, how do you think about that? When you look at your product, when you look at your business, when you think about what's the next thing that we should build, how do you look at that?
I think you're right there. Some of the things we don't exactly copy. We're not, we're not a company that does that. But I think looking at the wider market, you should probably not try and reinvent the wheel on some of these things. If you're a CRM, you've got to kind of look a certain way, else you're not a CRM. You've got to do certain things. But then there's some things you can innovate on, like, Poet was a great innovation. We've had some really, really great innovation, but actually the core product is collecting someone's thoughts in text, photo, or video, and then putting them on someone's website. And it's not rocket science, but then you've got to add a little bit of innovation in there. You've got to be 10%, 20% better than anyone else in the market. That's it. Creating markets is very, very difficult. Innovating the actual market, innovating a new category is very, very difficult and very, very expensive to do. If you've not got tons of funding, you're going to act in an existing category, then you've got to have some of the similar solutions to the existing category, else you're not in that category. So you've got to innovate, but innovate on certain elements where you think you can. I mean, we innovate in a lot of ways at reviews.io, but our core solution is similar to other people's core solution.
Okay. And so how would you say that your position, so if you, Trustpilot is I would assume the biggest one, or at least in the UK, probably Europe in general, Trustpilot is very well known. There are a few other big players. How do you position yourself in that market?
So we position ourselves as friendly. That's kind of, we're not the top tier. We're not the ones that you're probably going to go to first. No, 76 to 80% of our customers have already used a review platform and came to us. We're the person. We want the knowledgeable buyer, really. We want that knowledgeable person who's already used another platform and now actually know what they want, and then they do a bit of research, they find us, and we talk to them. And we're super friendly. We're friendly on our terms. We're friendly on our payment plans, and we really try and handhold our clients' hands so that they get the best solution. And that's really important. We pride ourselves on having more developers than salespeople, and it's so that we have people developers that can jump on calls and make sure that you get the right solution. So we're not going to be the market leader in spend. We're not. I don't have 200 people cold calling, companies every day. That's not how we work. That's not how we want to work. We're not a call center. We're a tech company. And we work on being technically the best in the market.
Is that easy, or is that a challenge for somebody if somebody switches from another platform and because they already have some reviews on that platform, can they kind of export and import them with you, or they just start from scratch? Or
it's all. Yeah. No, you don't want to start from scratch. I mean, Trustpilot and some of the other platforms out there make it very, very difficult to quit. They sign these clients into annual contracts that can only be cancelled in 30-day periods. They try and claim ownership of the reviews. And so if you're collecting reviews with Trustpilot own those reviews, not you as the brand. And that's pretty bad. A lot of people signing the contracts don't realize that. And yeah, they make it as difficult as possible, but from our point of view, we have to make it as friendly as possible. We have to make it as easy as possible. So when they come to us, we talk them through the whole process, and sometimes, we generally with Trustpilot, we advise that they leave those reviews. They don't move those reviews. Trustpilot owns them. It can cause legal headaches moving them. And actually, Trustpilot's going to always be there. You want a good reputation if you're an e-commerce company. And what we've got is a solution that really helps you manage that reputation, no matter they manage it on reviews.io, but we can actually help you manage your reputation on other platforms like Trustpilot, like Google, like Facebook, like Yelp, like G2, even the Shopify App Store. We're helping brands, collect reviews on the Shopify App Store. So it can be difficult. Going back to answer your question, yeah. Nobody wants to lose a client, and they'll make it as difficult as possible. If you've ever had the New York Times subscription, try cancelling it. Like the companies make it as difficult as possible to cancel. So, and it is the review space is super, super competitive. People don't realize this. This is super, super competitive.
That's what I was imagining. Yeah, that's why I said in the very beginning that I think you're in a pretty not the easiest market.
No, it's not an easy market. It really isn't. It's a very, very aggressive sales market. And we've tried to stay away from that aggressive sales model because we think people get missold and people overpromise. When they're on massive targets and you've got 200 people cold calling, they're all on different targets, and to hit those targets, they've got to overpromise and everything else. And we've just never wanted to be that company. So, we're probably not the first choice, but we'll more than likely be your second choice. And that's what we're seeing now. As the review market matures, our stock goes up more and more. So that's great for us.
So being in a competitive market, many entrepreneurs end up in a competitive market one way or another. Not everyone, but it depends obviously what you do. But often there is a market, there is a competition. So I often see, business as, I used to work with a coach, with a leadership coach, who would always make analogies with sports. And that's when I started thinking about business and leadership in general, a little bit like sports, right? There's always somebody there's always a rival. There's always somebody who you're trying to win against, and you try to be better and faster and stronger and have a better strategy and so on and so forth. How do you think about that? Or I guess a better question would be, how, as an entrepreneur and as a CEO, how do you look at performance? How do you make sure that you and your company, that you stay competitive, that you perform at your best?
We were very lucky that Trustpilot is a 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, and they were super, super aggressive. So they were pretty litigious and pretty bad against our company when we first started out. They'd say things and do things and sue us and do stuff that just wasn't cool. But what it really helped me do was, it helped me be a wartime founder. And I was able to galvanize my team around a common enemy. And I was able to motivate my team that we needed to beat these guys. We needed to hustle harder. We needed to work faster, work longer, work harder. And we wasn't going to stop. And I wasn't going to stop. And that was ultimately it. I lead from the front. And when you're bootstrapped, you kind of need that. You need somebody. You need a Goliath. You need somebody who's that big bad wolf that you can all have a common enemy. So kind of that was my view on this. That we were really lucky that we had that. At the time, I was pissed. I was mad with some of our competitors, and I still call them out. I'm outspoken. I'm an emotional person. Probably shouldn't be as emotional, but I am an emotional person, and I, call out injustice. I always have done, and always probably will do. So yeah, the competition's great. Listen, do not enter a market if there's no competition, because it's going to be really hard to motivate your team into creating something that's super powerful.
Well, that's a good thought right there. I like that. Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, you're saying motivate the team to work stronger, work harder, work longer, work faster. Yeah, is that how you look at your personal performance as well? I suppose. Do you have any unusual habits or unusual things that you do, or that keeps you on top of things every day? Or it doesn't have to be unusual, just what's your thing?
I grew up in a house where my dad was an entrepreneur, my mom was an entrepreneur. I grew up really, my parents and even my grandparents only ever worked for themselves. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. Now it was a very unstable household, in that 1 minute we had money and the next minute we didn't. And that was an awful scenario for a young kid to grow up in. Very unstable. Unstable, not in business. I think my parents go through, the recession in the 90s and the 80s, and really, it was either feast or famine. And I really understand that, and that motivates me. I don't want to go through those lean times. So even when things are good, I hustle hard, and I never rest on my laurels, and I think that's a great trait to have as an entrepreneur. I don't, I don't go and look at the bank balance daily. I hustle. You know, I get up in the morning and I go to work and go to work hard. Yeah, and I think it's that early thing that's built into you when you're a kid. You've kind of seen it, and it was tough for us. It was tough. It was feast or famine. Don't get me wrong. It was great when it was good, and it was bad when it was bad. But as that second or third generation founder, I really wanted to build a business that was very stable, and that drives me every day. And I have family and kids, and I want to do well by them, and then that drives me on as well.
Very, and I see that in many successful entrepreneurs that they had this painful experience or something that drives them every single day, because they've experienced something that they don't want to go through that anymore, and it creates an intrinsic motivation that just keeps you going, right? Because if you have, I think business is hard or can be hard sometimes, and if you have some superficial motivation, you're just it's just hard to get up in the morning and work on the things, or work on the difficult things that have to be done to keep the business alive, right?
Incredibly difficult, and to be an entrepreneur, you've got to love what you do, because it is fucking hard. You've got to love it. You've got to love getting up in the morning and doing those hard things. You've got to love it, because you're going to go through ups and downs. And if you don't love it, go get a job, because 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to earn more money on it getting a good job and going up the career ladder.
Mm-hmm. So you had some businesses before, you got 3 products now. Do you have any other ideas that you can share with everyone else? Maybe some things that you don't have time to work on, or something that you think should exist, and maybe somebody who's listening can pick it up and do it. One or many, as many as you want to share.
So I'm super passionate. My son has a really rare genetic disease, and I'm super passionate about helping people with disabilities, and helping people who are a little bit more disadvantaged maybe than other people. So I think there's a huge gap in the market, and there's 2 solutions that I think are out there that can be done. So I think there's medical equipment for children, mobility equipment for children with disabilities is hugely expensive. Mm-hmm. And there's kind of like a monopoly, duopoly, I suppose, called of two manufacturers that produce the most of these mobility devices, and they're mega expensive. You're talking £10,000 to £30,000 per piece of equipment. There's no secondary market for those equipment, those pieces of equipment. They have very little value once they've been used or the child's outgrown them. And I think it's such a huge market. It's a $1 billion market globally, and I think that there should be a secondary market for that equipment, a specialist secondary market, not just Facebook Marketplace or eBay, but actually somewhere where the equipment is verified and maybe even checked and got ready, and it's a huge market. The second thing is,
before you continue, can you tell? You said that there are 2 large businesses in this space. Can you tell which ones they are? So if somebody wants to look it up, specifically what kind of equipment we're talking about, they can just look up those businesses.
Yeah, the biggest is Lecky. I think it's LECKY. They're probably the biggest, and they literally do tubular frames, standers, walkers, these kind of things, but they're incredibly expensive. And it's basically a bike frame just bent, and you know, they're the biggest in the market. And the other one I think is Triton. I'll send you that so you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But, and that's a similar thing. So you've got these two brands. One of them's based in Ireland. I think the other one's in America. And there's no resale market. So if anyone wanted to look at a market that has huge potential, that's one of them. And the other is really just producing low cost versions of these pieces of equipment, because they're so incredibly expensive. And I think that'll come down. The other thing is eye gaze. If someone's very, very technical, is working on an eye gaze solution. Eye gaze solutions are incredibly expensive, but used by
what is that?
Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And that's where you can, you know, move the mouse with your eyes, and then you can do actions. But the actual raw materials has came down, but the price of the product hasn't came down. So for a eye gaze sensor is about £10,000 at the minute, and yet it has the same sensor in that the iPad has in it, the LiDAR sensor that the iPad has in it, that you can buy for, you know, $600. So there's a big mismatch in between pricing and the raw materials costs. So that huge margin business, and these companies are running too much, and it's not disrupted. They're still using fax machines to communicate. And if anybody's using a fax machine to communicate, they deserve to be disrupted.
I actually know somebody who would, I think, have the right skills to work on that. I need to let him know. Well, I'll just send him the episode, and I'll see if he wants to pick something like that.
I mean, if you've got anybody who wants to work on it, if anybody out there wants to work on it, get in touch with me. I want to be involved. You know, whether that's by financing or actually hustling and doing some of the work, you know, I want to be involved.
Perfect. I'll let you know if he's interested. I think he does have the right skill set. He's done similar things in the past. I'll see if he's interested. But yeah, I love also the kind of idea. That's exactly the kind of insight that, you know, to somebody who didn't have an experience with that, you don't even know that market exists, right? It's something that's not. You know, if you're not dealing with that, you don't know that that's a thing. You don't know that that's a problem, and that's perfect. And getting this kind of idea out there so that somebody can pick it up and actually work on that and dive into it.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool, Callum. I think we can wrap up at this point. Thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more. And thanks.
Thanks, Matisse. Thank you for having me on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. And I'll drop you the show note, some notes, so you can put in the show notes about the two brands.
Exactly. We'll add that in the show notes. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. By the way, before I forget, so anyone who actually listened until the end, that's more for the listeners than for you, but we kind of changed the podcast a lot recently. The language has changed, the name has changed, the format has changed. So if anyone wants to shoot me a message, please let me know what you think. How do you like this new approach? I'd love to hear any feedback, just so that we know if that's the direction that we should go towards, or, you know, what are your thoughts? I would love to know, either in private on whatever, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, find me somewhere, or publicly, obviously, any reviews on the App Store, or on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, that also helps to get some more views as well. So would really appreciate that. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.